Well, Dr. Maitra, thank you so much for finding the time to talk with me. And congratulations on this huge gig that you have.
Well, thank you, Paul, and you feel free to call me Anirban. It's just great to be speaking with you and the Cancer Letter, one that I've been reading every Friday at 4 o'clock when the new issue comes out.
Well,
A
thank you.
long
It's sometimes we're late, so it was better at MD Anderson.
time. That's right.
So the
That's right.
joys of Central Time. So yeah, it's really interesting because I noticed you're being hired in the summer in August last year. It was you and Manuel Hidalgo to run the Gastrointestinal Oncology Center at NYU, and now here you are as director of NYU Cancer Center. Was that a surprise, or was that part of the?
It was certainly not intended when I initially was moving here. I, in fact, had come here to co-lead the GI Cancer Center with Manuel, and then as it so happens, the search for the cancer center director was on, and I put my hat in the ring. And after the national search was done, they decided I was the right guy for this position. So that was wonderful, and indeed, I'm very honored to be serving in this role.
Well, I'm just trying to understand that part. Uh, Alec Kimmelman was your predecessor at the Cancer Center, but he is the CEO and the
He's the dean
dean.
and CEO of the entire NYU Langone health system.
He stayed in the director's job for about a year.
He was there for about 15 months or so, and there's been a lot of transition at the top, as you know. I mean, our past dean, Bob Grossman, retired, and he announced it about a year before he stepped down. And there was a national search for the dean position, and Alec was the eventual person selected for that. And so Alec had actually hired me for the GI Cancer Center job, and so when he transitioned, it is obviously impossible to do both jobs together. You have 53,000 plus employees in the whole health system across multiple campuses. So the cancer center director position fell vacant, and actually I want to acknowledge my partner in this endeavor, John Leonard, who had been hired from Cornell. John is the section chief of the Hemonc division, as well as the director of the Center for Blood Cancers here at NYU Langone. But he also served wonderfully as the interim cancer center director while the search for this position was ongoing once Alec transitioned. And he will stay on in not only his other roles, John Leonard, but also as the chief clinical officer for enterprise cancer strategy and operations. So he and I will be partnering quite a bit as we sort of work together in terms of the next chapter of the PCC.
Hmm. It is Manuel Hidalgo staying on in
Yes,
the
Manuel
job for.
will continue as the director of the GI Cancer Center, and in his role in terms of taking that particular endeavor forward.
I see, and you are not at the GI Center anymore, right? Or are you
I am
doing both?
not. I am not. It was both of us, and I'm not. So I know it is very confusing. There's a lot of transition, and maybe I should at some point draw something on a whiteboard and just explain how all of this is going. But let's just say that hopefully this is it. This is it. And so we have Alec Kimmelman as the dean, me as a cancer center director, John Leonard as the chief clinical officer for enterprise cancer strategy and operations, Manuel as the GI cancer center director, and so it goes. So hopefully now we are locked in for a long time to come.
Right, right. It's see, you don't even need the whiteboard. You can use the number two pencil that's very sharp, and then
That's
everything
right.
is good. But we've handled that. Now, maybe we can talk about something even simpler, which is what's it like to be running a cancer center in New York, which is kind of the most. You've got four comprehensive cancer centers, one clinical cancer center, and two programs that are aspiring cancer centers. So That's 7. That's what is NYU's role in this big
Yeah,
universe of?
absolutely. That's a good question. And, New York is also a very large area, and the New York metropolitan area and New Jersey, parts of Pennsylvania, Connecticut, all of this is encompassed by the catchment area that we serve. And I think it's important to remember that, we extend, at least NYU does, far beyond the confines of Manhattan, the island itself. I mean, we are in Long Island, we are in New Jersey, we are in Brooklyn. Brooklyn by itself has, more people residing in it than several states put together. So it's a big population that we serve, very diverse, a lot of different needs, a lot of different risk factors for cancer, the cancer types that arise. And so it's a very sort of specialized endeavor, if you so will. And so I think there is good rationale to be had for all of these places to exist, and because of the populations we serve, which is so large and diverse. I don't know if this was something that was going to come up later, but why did I move in the first place? So first of all, I think just a little personal piece. I did promise my wife many years ago that I would take her back to the city she loves, and so here we are. I'll throw that one in. But I was also at MD Anderson, as you know, for almost 12 years, and I really wanted to sort of get out a little bit out of a freestanding cancer center environment and come to a place like NYU that is a health system, integrated health system that also has a lot of primary care model in it, people who are seeing sort of the first portal of entry, and not just individuals who are diagnosed with cancer and are coming many times after already having received treatment outside. I mean, MD Anderson, and rightfully so, is often a place where people come after they have seen other doctors or have received treatment. So I was missing out a lot on something that is very near and dear to me, and it's a big focus of my own research, which is early detection, high risk, and really trying to catch cancer early. And I felt like a place like NYU that has 500 gastroenterologists scoping every day. I mean, the mind boggles when you hear that number, but it's true. I am a GI pathologist, so I see some of those biopsies. I read them out. We have this massive sort of footprint in the community that feeds into the cancer center and allows what I envision. One of my aspirational goals is to really be not just treating cancer as a cancer center, but also to be diagnosing it early, detecting it before it becomes cancer, potentially intercepting it before it becomes cancer, and also identifying individuals who are at risk for cancer and putting them on either surveillance or lifestyle modifications, what have you. And I just felt like it was really time for me to come out of a cancer center, freestanding cancer center environment into something that was more like an NYU model of an integrated health system.
NYU has this enormous footprint. What do you build? What building are you planning to build on top of it now?
Well,
Starting
I don't necessarily
now.
have. That's really more of Alex's job Kimmelman's job to be building buildings. My job
I
is
don't mean this literally.
no, no, I know, no,
I
I
mean
get
this
it. I get it,
superstructure.
metaphorically. I totally get it. No,
Yeah.
jokes aside. So, my job is, I think this is an absolutely exceptional cancer center. How do we make it better? And so, along with John Leonard, one of the few things that we have decided is what are the sort of the areas we are going to focus on. And so, I think one thing that we really want to do is expand on the portfolio of clinical trials that we have available for our patients. There's a lot of new therapies that are coming our way. One example, and I know that you're well aware of this, for example, in the GI cancer space or the thoracic space, in particular pancreatic, for which there are so few treatments available for so long. Now we have this very exciting cache of RAS inhibitors, many of them that are being trialed in early phase trials, some that have gone a little bit further, and combinations coming our way. How can we offer these clinical trials to patients across the region in all of the NYU the cancer center outpost, not just here, but across all of our different sort of sites. That's one thing. Expand the portfolio of cancer trials. The second one is really, again, partner in terms of our other sort of specialties like gastroenterology and pulmonology, and see how we can implement early detection and screening into the role that we play in terms of cancer treatment. And so we are really, putting forth some very ambitious plans in terms of screening, for example, for GI cancers, and not just I'm not saying just in the context of standard of care colonoscopies, but with in particular the increasing incidence of early onset cancers in an age group where you would normally not do colonoscopies. Can we interrogate, for example, warning signs in the EHR using AI and pick out individuals who might benefit from an earlier than mandated by age guidelines screening for colonoscopy or some other test? Same thing with lung cancer. There's a huge number of lung cancers that are now arising, for example, in Asian populations, in non-smokers. And these, happen out of the blue. And is there warning signs that we can pick up and catch these cancers early? So that's the other area that we want to focus on. And then, of course, we really want to be able to deliver not just care at the time of treatment, but afterwards. I mean, one of the great things that modern medicine has enabled is survivorship. And patients with cancer, I mean, we know this from the American Cancer Society data that comes out every year. Actually, just last month was the cancer statistics paper that came out. One of the best things that has happened in the oncology universe is we now have true long-term survivors. We have survivorship, but that survivorship does come with some challenges, whether it's fertility issues or bone health, nutrition, and to be really able to, again, partner with other specialties and deliver that survivorship care in the community is another thing that we really want to focus on. So clinical trials, early detection and screening, survivorship, these are all areas that I want us to build on and to be able to deliver to sort of the population that we serve.
Mm-hmm. How do you convert that into programs? Are you like having weekly meetings with everybody, or how does that work?
Well, don't ask me about meetings. There's a lot of meetings, but really, ultimately, what this all has to translate, as you absolutely correctly asked, is action. So the way to do that is to build it, to make it sort of break it down into modular buckets and build it piece by piece up. So let's just talk about the clinical trial. So I think there are certain areas that within the clinical trial universe we want to focus on. For example, immuno-oncology. I think that's an area where there's tremendous potential for growth. We've seen some really exciting advances and approvals that have happened in the last year or so. And I think the way I look at it is to take each of those pillars that we discussed and break it down into modules or buckets that we can build back up on. So let's talk about clinical trials and portfolio. And we have a lot of goals, ambitious goals within that particular bucket. So one, for example, is expanding our immuno-oncology portfolio. There's been a lot of exciting advances in the immuno-oncology space, not just in terms of combining sort of drugs that have existed, but also newer modalities that are coming, bispecifics, for example, and in particular, how can we really offer that in sort of an expanding cache of diseases or solid tumors where they have not been used previously. So I think that's one area that we really want to explore and build on. The second is expanding our portfolio of investigator-initiated trials. One of the things that, again, I'm really proud of and one of the reasons that excited me about coming to NYU is we have tremendous science here, like basic and translational research. And we really want to be able to take some of those advances and move them into the clinic through what we would call investigator-initiated trials. And so that's the other bucket that I want to invest in and really build our portfolio of IITs. So immuno-oncology, IITs. The third thing, and this is near and dear to my heart, is to really have science trials that focus on learning from every patient, and to really sort of understand mechanisms of resistance and response. This is something that I've done for a living at MD Anderson while I was there, and so I really want us to invest in trials where we, for example, do serial monitoring of patients when they're on these trials and understand mechanisms of resistance so that we can develop better combinations. I'm very lucky that just before I came, NYU launched its Center for Molecular Oncology that's led by one of my colleagues, Sridhar Ganesan. You actually wrote about his joining NYU and the Center for Molecular Oncology starting out. And this is just publicly announced last month. We have this big partnership with Tempus that will allow us to serially monitor every patient as they're on these trials or even on standard of care therapies, and really understand sort of the molecular basis of resistance and recurrence, and therefore better informed combination therapies. So again, I'm just walking you through all of this to explain that there are these pillars, but within these pillars there are modules, and I'm going to break them down into each of these digestible modules and focus on each of them so that together it helps us. So think of these as bricks that make the pillar. So that's kind of the plan. And we will do that for each of the priority areas that we want to focus on.
How many patients do you see, new patients, a year, do you think?
So for FY25, we had about 150,000 cancer infusions. So the number I gave you previously was both oncology and non-oncology. For FY25, we had 150,000 cancer infusions. Our hope is to grow that, substantially in this coming year.
Yeah, and in 25, how many new patients did you have?
Give me a second. We have these metrics available to us. Close to 70,000 new patients.
Let me just ask this again so we can use that part and cross out all the intermediate part stuff. So how many patients do you see every year? How many cancer infusions? Do you have any statistics like that?
Sure. So in FY25, we had approximately 70,000 plus new patients that we saw across all the cancer specialties at all of our PCC locations. And then we had approximately 150,000 oncology-related infusions that we did in FY25. And of course, we also had additional non-oncology infusions as well.
You don't have the numbers for rankings in terms of, does that make you number one in the market, number two, number three?
I don't have those numbers, to be honest with you, no.
Yeah, they're probably, yeah. No, it's all really fascinating, but the area you're telling me, and I think others are telling me, that the area that is least well served right now is Brooklyn.
That is correct. That's correct. Brooklyn is a large catchment area where there isn't a lot of clinical activity happening in terms of some of the clinical trials or CAR T-cell therapy, et cetera. And I think there's a real opportunity because Brooklyn is a place where we have a freestanding facility that is able to do both inpatient as well as outpatient therapies. We actually did one of the first CAR T-cell therapy trials in Brooklyn that was ever done. And so I'm really excited about the potential for us to grow in Brooklyn in particular, because again, it's a really important area by itself. The population of Brooklyn is, as I said, is larger than some of the states put together. So and there's a real opportunity for us to really grow in that space.
And there's also room for others.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, this is not an exclusive area by any means, but for NYU's perspective, for us, I want us to be able to bring the same standard and the same cachet of clinical trials as much as is possible to Brooklyn, And, we already have, for example, multiple breast cancer trials. As I said, we just did a myeloma CAR T cell trial there. So I was really excited to hear about all of this, last year when I moved here. And so to be able to build on that foundation is something that is very much on my mind. And I think, one of the things I did want to emphasize is, again, we talked about it a little bit. We have Manhattan, but we also have Mineola, we have Brooklyn, Sunset Park in particular, and these are places where I really want us to grow not only the sort of the outpatient oncology facility, but also what we do in terms of inpatient therapy and more advanced modalities like CAR T cells, et cetera.
Do you worry a lot about the NCI funding situation? How is that affecting you?
Yeah, I mean, I think last year was stressful, to be honest, for the entire community. But I have to say that the ship has righted a lot. I think that Congress has really, I would say, more than made up for the NIH appropriation as well as the NCI funding. I think there is a slated increase of about 125 million for NCI, from what I remember. And it's modest, but it's real, and it certainly will help us in terms of getting back to some extent where we were. The other thing is, I think there was a lot of concern about the multi-year funding last year because that would have reduced the number of NIH grants. But I think that there's a proposal to cap it at 39%,
Correct.
which would make it a lot better for the number of new grants that are funded, et cetera. So I think, and I will just, I will give a shout out to Tony Latai, the new NCI director, again, who's been at it just a few months, but I think he's really trying to get things back on firm footing here for all of us. And, I think, again, once this funding appropriations is passed, moving forward, a lot of the anxiety hopefully will abate. There will always be anxiety. I mean, in 25 years of running a lab, Paul, I mean, I've lived through, when we first hit the 9th percentile, the sky was falling. Everybody was so stressed out. Oh my gosh, we are in single digits. We made it through, and I think we'll make it through this as well. Of course, we'll all have to think about alternatives to NIH funding, and we all are. Even when I was at MD Anderson, this was a big area of focus, and it's a focus here at NYU. So, how can we leverage foundations? How can we have more industry collaborations? How can we get more IP out there? I mean, we all have to get creative. But I do think that the sky is falling mindset, hopefully, we have righted that ship a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, MD Anderson has CPRET. You don't have CPRET.
We don't have CPRET. There is a movement in the New York State to have a CPRET like, I don't know where that is, to be honest with you. I know that there was sort of a ground up effort to do that by the scientists in the state of New York, but I'm not sure what traction it has gained. But you're right. The state of Texas does have CPRET. With that said, I mean, a lot of what CPRET does, I would say the bulk of what it does is actually product development, recruitment to the state of new scientists. I mean, the R01 style pool of CPRET is there, but it's not the biggest piece. The biggest piece is still product and company relocation and recruitment of new people to the state of Texas. So I think if you are in the state of Texas, it's interesting. The pay line for CPRET, if you're in the state of Texas, is actually half of the pay line of the NIH nationally. People think that, CPRET money means you're loaded in the state of Texas, but I just want to caution there. The pay line for Texas is really hard. In my 12 years at MD Anderson, I got one CPRET grant. And that's primarily because it's very competitive. I mean, there's a lot of people in the state of Texas competing for it. But it's really great to recruit people, or if you have a company and you want to relocate to Texas. I mean, a big part of this was to build employment in the biotech field there, right? So they do give money for that.
But 4% pay line for NIH is still pretty
Well, that
horrifying.
was last year. That was
Right.
last year with the multi-year funding and all of that. Just to, but again, I think that's
It's
going to
gonna,
get righted.
is it gonna go up? I don't know. We should call Tony. Let's conference him in.
I am quite certain it's going to go up with the capping of the multi-year funding and writing of some of the appropriations amount. I'm quite certain it's going to go up. It is a concern. Again, I'm not saying that it's all hunky dory and everyone's going to
Yeah.
kumbaya land here. Please, understand that. I mean, I think if you talk to any cancer center director, that is the first thing weighing on their minds. I mean, I'm hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic that we are past the sky is falling stage of our science here.
Oh, that is interesting. So this is not one of the things that's keeping you up at night. What is the number one thing that worries you the most?
It is funding. I mean,
Okay.
it's funding, but you also have to, when the good news comes, you also have to rake that in, right? I mean, I think again, the appropriations bill was a sigh of relief. If you had a 40% cut, which was, I think,
Yeah.
that was what was proposed. If you had a true 40% cut in the NIH budget, NCI budget, that would have been a disaster. But that's not happening. It is not happening. Congress has righted that ship, and I think we should at least take a deep breath and absorb that piece of good news, but also be creative about what to do in terms of other opportunities. And so we are. I mean, all of us are thinking about, as I said, foundations, working with other modalities or other entities, companies, etc. I mean, can we get more industry-sponsored trials? Can we get, sort of avenues for us to get our own technology out there and work in terms of interested parties? So you have to just be creative. And we at NYU, there's now someone who's thinking of that full time. That's their job, which is I think what other institutions are doing as well. So again, you can't just say, well, it's just the NIH and we should just depend on the NIH. So I think you just have to really diversify all sources of funding, which is what we are doing.
Are you giving out a lot of bridge funding just to keep the labs open for the young
Yeah,
investigators?
well,
Or?
yes, actually, it's interesting you asked that. Just this morning, I had my budget meeting, my first one, and one of the things we talked about was bridge funding. So I have a lot of experience with this because at MD Anderson for a long time, I was actually the chair of the bridge funding committee, and so we really try to help junior investigators, but also senior investigators who have come close to getting funded. Obviously, this is what you're trying to do is investigators who have great science ongoing in their labs, who have put in the grant, and actually got a great score that 5 years ago would have been fundable, but who didn't make it. And then you really want to make sure that you can take them to that point where once we hopefully will go back up on our pay lines and the funding will come through, that they're able to then sustain it on extramural funding. So yes, we absolutely do this. When I got here, there was actually and this was not by me because I was not the cancer center director, but there was a call for who needs bridge funding, who got impacted by the reduced pay lines, and there were people like that who almost made it, who should have gotten the funding and who didn't, or who sometimes some of the foundations as well were not able to match their commitment because either they were not able to raise money. I mean, the ACS tries really hard, but they don't always have the money to fund, and they kind of put you in this category where you are recommended, but you're not actually funded, and so you have to wait and see if they're able to raise the money. So these are the sort of deserving faculty whose science you want to preserve. And this is where, I'm hoping that some of the discretionary funds I can parlay into to keep the great science we have going.
Do you have numbers, or is that something you can give me roughly?
We don't have specific numbers. To be honest, it goes by, as it's required. And obviously, this is partly dependent on the national environs. It comes and goes. I mean, if it's really bad out there, then more people will be needing bridge funding. If it's not as bad out there, less people will be needing bridge funding. So there is no specific number. Ultimately, my goal is to make sure that people who are doing great science, we preserve them and we don't lose them. I mean, that's the key thing here. And that is especially true for early career faculty. But to be honest with you, and again, having done this for 12 years at MD Anderson, it's also true for senior faculty who may be hit by the same pay line issue. I mean, I know we always talk about early career faculty, and I'm a big believer in fostering their growth and their careers, but this can hit anyone, to be honest with you. And the mid-career faculty, for example, are actually, in my eyes, often at higher risk because everyone is worried about the early career faculty. There's lots of things that are going on for your first grant. Many foundations give sort of junior investigator awards. But once you've had that first award and before you've hit the big leagues, that there's that mid-career transition phase. That's really hard. That is, I think, to me, the vulnerable spot where we lose people because they're not able to renew their first grant, or they're not able because they've lost out on the first-time grantee award or many of the foundation grants that support junior investigators, and they haven't gotten to the point where they are well-known enough to be able to really make it in some of these other larger grants or programmatic U54s or U01s. That's like that Cinderella spot, but Cinderella spot not in a good way, Cinderella spot in a bad way, where we tend to lose investigators because they're like neither here nor there. And so I want to make sure that we look out for those folks as well.
Yeah. What about community outreach and engagement? How is that working for you? Where does it kind of fit into your view of how things should be?
Well, actually, it's something that is, again, a pillar of our CCSG, as you know, and something that we are actively working on. I mean, Simona Kwan leads our COE efforts, and we have a extensive COE outreach and staff, and it's particularly important in the New York area because there is so many diverse communities, and there's a lot of sort of cultural and other sort of barriers that we have to work through, especially in the context of, for example, prevention and screening efforts. There's different levels of trust. And so our CAOE is a really important partnership that we have with the Cancer Center, and Simona and I absolutely plan to work together on that. I mean, just let's take the example of Brooklyn. I mean, there are so many different communities in Brooklyn alone, and everything from screening to coming and joining a clinical trial to survivorship. You need your COE partner to help you work through, everything from the trust factor to joining clinical trials to making sure that people are following up in a timely manner. It's a challenge, but it's also a glorious opportunity for our cancer center and the COE arm to be able to do this in a way that is meaningful for the community we serve.
Yeah, interesting. I was talking with Otis Brawley the other day, and about kind of where does COE stand in all of New York institutions, and his thought was they don't seem to be all cooperating on that. But imagine the questions that could be answered if all of the seven. 5 plus 2, were to cooperate on COE, what kind of questions could be answered? It's kind of.
I'm willing to work with everyone. Again, one of the things that I am known for generally in the cancer research community and in the oncology community is I'm a really collaborative person, very inclusive, very open. And so for me, if we are able to make a difference together, I'm happy to do that. I mean, that's one of the sort of creeds that I live by. And so, just to give an example, I mean, I think, if there is a partnership we can do with any of the other cancer centers in terms of a particular screening and a Mets game or whatever, I'm happy to do that. I mean, I have no issues with that. I mean, the point is to have an impact, right? I mean, that's why we have these comprehensive cancer centers. And if that impact can be done as a team, I mean, sure, we do this in science in the lab every day. We can very much do this in the context of the care we deliver as well. This happens, by the way, informally every day in terms of treatment. I mean, there is a lot of sharing of patients. Sometimes a trial is open somewhere else. We have a trial open, it's not open somewhere else, or we have a patient who's operated here. So this happens informally every day, and there's a lot of crosstalk and friendship and collegiality amongst the centers in terms of everyday practice. So I just want to emphasize that. And so, it's not that people are at each other's throats or anything like that. So
No, no, of course not. But it's something you want. And I absolutely believe that it's true because I've seen that kind of thing happen all the time.
yes, all
So
the, all the time.
it's a community. It really is more so than most people realize. Can you tell me who takes Medicaid among the 7?
Yeah, so Paul, I'm not sure about the other cancer centers. I can tell you that NYU Langone Health, it does accept Medicaid managed care plans across its location, and Medicaid is approximately 25% or so of our patient population. I will say the other thing that we do, which I'm very proud of, is our oncologists also manage the care at Bellevue, which is part of the New York Health System, very vaunted legacy organization, as you know. And in fact, we offer clinical trials at Bellevue. Bellevue patients can come and join clinical trials at the main hospital as well. We participate in the tumor boards. And so we really do have a footprint in the community beyond just, the main hospital.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fascinating. So is there any question I forgot to ask?
I don't know. I mean, you've spoken to a lot of cancer center directors who knew in their job. I am on day 2. I will just tell you that, Paul. So,
Oh, cool. That is so cool.
so you got me really early, which is great. I really love talking to you, and of course, as I said, a big fan for many, many, many years. But if there's any question that comes to you that wasn't asked, feel free to email me, and I'm happy to address it for you later as well.
That's fantastic. Well, good luck and thank you very much.